Hello, everybody, and welcome to RWB Sports. Hi, this is Reginald Peoples. I know you've known we've been on the circuit for quite some time, and you know RWB Sports, we're looking at bringing every entity that comes with putting a boxing venue together live and to the forefront. Well, today I have the opportunity to talk to a nutritionist, and you don't know if you're a fighter, a boxer, a trainer, whatever, you know how important it is for a fighter's diet, how he needs to diet or she needs to diet, 2, 3, 4 weeks out before a fight to be able to maintain her strength, be able to maintain her endurance, be able to maintain muscle mass, and all of that plays a big factor in what they put in their body. Well, today I have an opportunity to talk to Dalton Blankinship. He's a nutritionist, and he was blessed. He has blessed us with wanting to come on to the show. And now let's go ahead and give Dalton the opportunity to say hello and tell the fans, what got you into the field of being a nutritionist.
Well, hello. My name is Dalton D. Blankinship, and I'm a nutritionist, specifically a nutrition coach. I have a degree in nutritional sciences and master's in health, human performance health promotions. And growing up, seeing what I could do, what held me back from going further, I was in karate and wrestling. And the martial arts did a major impact in my life. I'd like to give back to the community to help them out, grow and learn together through food and community and connection.
Okay. Well, and that's great. So in the process, you went to college and you got the degree, and now you're doing just like we are, who is willing to give back to the youth. And it's interesting that you say that you were in karate and that you were in martial arts, because that's going to be another show that I'm probably going to reach out to you and invite you back on, because it does a little, it's going to talk about something a little different. But we want to go ahead and get into the nutritional part of it. Now, I know, but it took me a while to understand it, because when people used to tell me about dieting and tell me about what I eat, and I thought it was all the same. So I thought a nutritionist and a dietitian was the same. Can you explain it and break it down to those who don't know the difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian?
Of course, sir. I'd be glad to. Well, a dietitian is a medically, legally protected name. You have to go through certain licensures and exams. For instance, become a dietitian, you get a bachelor's in nutritional sciences. I think it's now a master's you need. Then you do over 1,000 hours of supervised practice or an internship, and then you take the RD exam, which you have to recertify every so often to stay current on the nutritional sciences.
Okay. Okay, and so that's going to lead us to our next question. Is that because a dietitian, it seems like it's more in depth when it comes to on the food side of it. It's more in depth when it comes to that, opposed to the nutritionist side of it, which is regulating what the intake is in order to do the same results with a larger portion. So let me ask you this. So I know we touched on it a little bit, but can you go into a little more detail of, out of all the nutritionist, dietitian, medical fields, what made you choose a nutritionist to be a nutritionist?
Well, going forward, I think people are dealing more with prevention. My grandma always told me an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And nutritionists are like the front line, okay? I have a scope of practice smaller than a dietitian or a doctor of nutrition.
Okay.
And I get general advice, general habits, lifestyle things like that, like basic necessities of nutrition.
Okay. All right. So it's basically that you're trying to assist them in in helping out what they're needing to do. Let's just say, let's take it from a boxer standpoint because this is pretty much a boxing show. I'm going to camp. I am, 4 or 5 weeks out in camp, and I'm starting to hit my heavy training sessions right now, so I can wind down. So I'm starting to cut weight. I'm starting to cut mass. So what is it that you would do for someone like me who needs to cut, you know, 10, 15 pounds to get on weight to be ready for my event?
Well, a big thing is hydration, how much fluid you're taking in, what kind of fluids.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one.
Okay.
Also, I assess where you're at weight wise and where you need to be and try and make a reliable and consistent plan that you can follow without going to starvation or dealing with some type of problem. You know what I mean? Not too far off from what your baseline is, if it was me.
Right. Okay. So now going into working with different clients, and I just use boxing as a reference because that's what I know, that's what I do, and that's what I know. But when you work with individual clients, especially in the athletic field, what aspects of a dietitian do you feel that is most important to get across to those athletes and what they need to do? Now, I know it's going to depend on what sport. It's going to depend on the type of athleticism that they're doing. But what is it that you feel is most important to get across to the client on what they need to do and why?
Well, if I was a dietitian, and the terms of, at least in the category of boxing, they're very intense rounds. You know what I mean? Keep up that
Mm-hmm.
output, keep up the muscles, keep up, buffering of lactic acid, keep the muscles, keep the heart going. So not too heavy, many heavy meals, and more leaner varieties of foods, and keep that engine peaking. You know what I mean?
Right, right. Now, what type of foods would you consider a lean food, but yet a very high lactic acid food? Would it be something like chicken or broccoli, or would it be rice? What would you recommend for a diet for an athlete? It doesn't have to be a boxer. Any athlete that you would see that would basically try to keep, them in rhythm throughout the entire event.
Well, if it was me, I would choose more chicken, water, very basic food groups, and try to taper it off before the fight. You know what I mean? Start off a
Right.
little heavy with food, then just taper down. Just like the train, match the training rhythm. You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. So now, which type of population? I'm trying to get back to my questions here because I don't want to get too far off. If sometimes I get to talking about things and it flows, and so it comes off on something else. But I want to try to get back to the questions. What type of populations do you have the most experience working with? I mean, like, do you have most experience working with like athletes? Do you have experience working with, elderly people, actors? Because I know each one is pretty much configured differently. I know an athlete is different from an elderly person. An elderly person is probably different from, a model. So what population do you work with mostly?
Well, I mostly work with athletes,
Okay.
at least more of a tips and advice thing, not really as a member of their sport team, but general helpful advice.
Okay. All right. So like high school level, college level, in that field.
Yes, high school level, younger men, college level, because I do beat Brazilian Jiu Jitsu now and Muay Thai, nearly general with younger men.
Okay. Okay. Now that's perfect. So let's talk about jujitsu because I have several friends that train in jujitsu. So if we were talking about you getting ready for a tournament, and you knew that you was going to have to fight, 3 times that night in the tournament before you even got to the finals, how would you prepare yourself, nutritionist wise, to be able to endure that time frame?
Well, again, hydration would be big for making weight and keeping, everything going.
Mm-hmm.
I would also try to employ more leaner meats like chicken, fish, seafood, turkey, not to get all that fat and extra calories,
Mm-hmm.
not to weigh me down.
Okay.
And I'd eat more fruit personally because it doesn't weigh you down as much as vegetables with all their fiber and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Okay. So you want to eat something that's actually going to give you nutrients, nutrients on a faster level, but it's going to pass through you rather quickly as well. So it's not going to bog you down. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, got this one here. It's like working closely with your clients. Have you ever come across a difficult client? Let's say you work on certain things, you have them doing certain diets, but yet it just doesn't seem like it's working, or they're not sticking to the diet. And if so, how would you go about, handling that? How would you go about correcting that?
Well, one of the major things I do is treat the nutrition experience as an experiment between me and my client, a partnership,
Okay. Okay. So in doing so, let's give us an example. If you had someone, an athlete that that knew that they had a tournament coming up. Let's say just say wrestling in high school, a high school wrestler, and they had a time making weight. You gave them a specific diet. You gave them a specific regimen to follow, and even though they followed it, their body still was not uh, giving into it. It wasn't agreeing with what you had. How would you go about correcting that?
Well, I would give a lot of people a food journal activity for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks and go off that. They're recording it right, taking pictures,
Mm-hmm.
using simple measurements like hand size or thumbs for fats and stuff like that, and see where the holes are. Like, are they going to eat out once a week, or was there a birthday? Was there a bunch of weddings or something like
Right.
outside the ring, basically?
Okay. So you would try to figure out. Basically, you would. It's like being a FBI agent. You would have to do the research on why it's not working. So you would go back and ask the questions of why. What are you doing outside of the regiment that we set? And okay, so that makes sense. Let's go into our next question. It says, in the athletic world, especially in the professional side of things, there are other professional personnel involved, like when it comes to like boxers and things like that, football players. When it comes time to working with other professionals like physicians and things like that, how do you collaborate with them as far as a diet goes, as far as a nutrition platform goes, working with another professional?
Well, if I was working with a sports dietitian or somebody up on the hierarchy of nutrition, I'd follow with them more closely and do more, try to collaborate more with them on their side because they're higher up in expertise, in credentials.
Okay. All right. So you would have your input of what you're going to, what type of diet or what type of regimen you're going to have them on, and then you would collaborate with the doctor to see if that's going to be fit. Because I know some individuals that are athletes, they have some some have disabilities, and what I mean by disabilities, some have like high blood pressure, some have low blood pressure, some have diabetes. How do you go about working with athletes with those sort of disadvantages?
Well, yes, they come in with a condition. I would try to work in more on the side of what I know about those things and try to collaborate. More water here, less salt here, less fat here, and just kind
Mm-hmm.
of just help the dietitian get a better idea. Be kind of like the Watson, both diet detectives, but they're more Sherlock Holmes. I'm more Watson on the diet detective side. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. All right. So you would basically, try to eliminate a lot of the things, a lot of the known things that would trigger whatever it is, whatever disadvantage they may have during competition. Just say if they was a diabetic, you would try to load them up on enough carbs that's going to be able to sustain them throughout an event, so their sugar doesn't drop, and maintain it so it doesn't get too high. Okay. All right. Perfect. Uh, let's see. Can you give us a few examples of like meal plans? Like I was talking to you. I'm going to introduce you to Angela, who is a chef that does meals and meals for does fancy meals. So she's looking for a dietitian to help her out with uh, regulating, how much protein or how many calories or how many carbs. So, can you give us an example of a meal prep that you would have or that you would set up for an athlete? I know we touched on it a little bit more, but I want to go into a little more detail with it of, as far as ounces, as far as, cup size, as far as, what you would put together and how much. Would it be 2 weeks, would it be 3 weeks, that you would put together for an athlete that's getting ready for a main event?
Well, as a nutritionist, I would implore a good amount of protein, like a hand size of chicken or a deck
Mm-hmm.
of cards of chicken. And also, I would do about moderate carbs, for the training, a lot more. But when we taper down to the fight, kind of lessen them, kind of like start at a baseline, go up, peak, then just taper down to where we need to go.
Okay. So as far as the prep itself goes, it would be like let's say a half a chicken breast, maybe a cup of rice, maybe 8 ounces to 12 ounces of broccoli, which is a vegetable that you have to have, your greens and things like that. So, uh, what would you put together for the difference with? Would you put the same thing together for a boxer as you would a sprinter or someone in jiu-jitsu?
Well, I do swimming on the side, but with jujitsu, it's more of a grind.
Mm-hmm.
Boxing's much more high intense. Not saying those movements don't exist in jujitsu, but I'd focus more on the long term for a jujitsu match because when I go to a tournament, it's usually 5 or 6 minutes straight.
Right. Okay. Okay. So you're building and putting together meals for the longevity opposed to the burst of speeds, and that makes sense because you train that way as well. When you train as a boxer or you train as jujitsu, we do things in spurts as a boxer, whereas we train the way we're going to fight because it's a lot of high impact, it's a lot of high intensity, and then it could come out and then it could go low. Whereas with jujitsu, it is a constant struggle. It's a constant tussle because you pretty much never let go of your opponent. You're always adjusting, moving, and shifting weights. So you have to have more of a muscle mass or more of a muscle endurance than anything. So I can understand. I can see where you're coming from on that. As I say, in the boxing world, fighters are constantly losing weight. Even in the heavyweight division, they have to maintain a certain uh, I guess, mass to be able to, and you can be too heavy in the heavyweight division, but you still have to maintain a certain mass. So, what type of diet would you put together to help someone develop to lose the weight but continue to maintain strength?
Well, I personally would follow more of a recomp strategy of cutting out fat but keeping muscle, more protein, stuff like that, more water,
Mm-hmm.
cut out
Okay.
some unnecessities you don't need so much of, less
Right.
carbs, less fats, some fats for satiety, but that's about it for
Right.
fats.
So let me ask you this. So as far as diet, how would you feel implementing fruits and nuts and things like that into a diet? Are those items high in any sort of nutrient to help a fighter or to help an athlete maintain and stabilize endurance?
Well, one of my favorite fruits is the kiwi. It has potassium in it, which helps,
Hmm.
the electrolyte balance of the body so you don't get cramps. Big
Okay.
one. And also fiber. And when it comes to nuts, I'm a big fan of almonds. Lots of
Hmm.
good nutrients in there. Decent amount of fat too. Helps satiate themselves.
Okay. All right. So, would there be any difference in a set diet if the athlete had minor setbacks? And we touched on it a little bit earlier, but we touched more on the nutritional side of it. But like if someone did have a diabetes, if they were a diabetic, uh, would you approach their nutritional I guess skeleton, their nutritional uh, platform or portfolio differently than you would someone else?
Yes, they have what we call a pre-existing condition.
Okay, all right. And how would you go about doing that? What would make it any different? What would make their portfolio any different than uh, someone that we consider a healthy athlete?
Well, it would depend on the dietitian if they had type 1 or type 2 diabetes, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The problems that both arise from different levels of it.
Okay. All right. So you would have someone with, maybe a type 1, type 2 diabetes. They would be like low uh, fruit, maybe, more on the nuts, more on the protein, very low on fruits and sugars.
Oh, yes. I'd definitely
Okay.
need more into vegetables in that count. And also, when they take their insulin, their other medications they have to go on dialysis, a bunch of other factors.
Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm.
I can't hear you, sir. I'm sorry.
Uh oh. I'm sorry. I turned it down. Let me turn it back up. Let me
So,
repeat that. Let me repeat that question. I was hearing an echo. That's why I turned it down a little bit, and I think it may be on your end. But we're gonna go on the other side of the spectrum. So we have an athlete that's not trying to lose weight. They're trying to gain weight, and not only are they trying to gain weight, they're trying to gain muscle mass. But they don't want to put fat on. They want to stay lean and build strength. How would you go about building a diet for that?
Well, I'd implore more, be more versatile in the meat. You know what I mean? More beef, brisket, and also more whole grain carbs, whole grain pastas and stuff like that. A little more satiety, a little more good stuff in it.
Okay. Heavy on the red meat or no?
I didn't. I'd put some red meat, mostly more than I would for somebody that was trying to maintain, but mostly chicken, fish, lean birds, stuff like that.
Okay. All right. Now, is there any type of meat, nut, berry, vegetable out there that would have more nutrients in it, or that you would recommend that would have more nutrients in it than uh, another type of meat? Just say for me, for instance, we're going to use me in this case. Uh, I want to start eating healthy. I want to start changing my diet so I can lean. I want to lean out. So, what meats or what diet would you recommend for me? I'm 6'2". I am 276 pounds. I want to get down to 230. What would you recommend besides exercise?
Yeah, that'd be there. That was gonna be my first one. That was gonna be my first. That's my jab. That was my jab.
Yeah.
I, I would say we would focus. What time frame? I mean, that'd be the biggest point. Like we put more leaner things. Like I personally love salmon and oysters and things of that nature.
Uh huh.
Less
Okay.
carbs.
All right. So now let me ask you this. Now, what's the difference in those type of meats? Because I'm a fish guy. I used to love shellfish, but I've developed an allergy to the iodine in shellfish. But I can still eat fish. I'd much rather have fish than red meat. What's the difference in those meats between seafood and uh, grass fed or grain fed meats?
Well, I'd say omega threes are a big one. Omega threes for joints and basic health needs are very good in fish.
Okay. All right. And the
They
omega
all
threes are used to like lubricate the joints and things like that.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. So and now we have one more question. It says, can you explain the difference in approaches between the ages? And I saved this one for last because different ages require different approaches. And as someone in, grade school or elementary school, you're not going to need to set a plan for them too much because they have high energy anyway. They have a high metabolism. No matter what you put in them, they're going to burn it off. High school, uh, and you want to start developing a plan to try to get the best out of them because they're starting to study, starting to stay up late, so they're having to rejuvenate the muscles quicker. College, you have to do the same thing because their workload has become more. Now, as you know, we pyramid. We start here, we peak in our 30s and 40s, and then we start declining again in our 50s and 60s. So, what's the major difference in preparation as far as the age pyramid goes? How would you approach each individual age group that I just mentioned? Like I said, elementary, no. High school, you start developing. College, you start developing. Uh, 40s, 30s, and 40s, you maintain. 50s, you start to decline. How would you approach that?
Well, if they're in high school, let's say they're a wrestler, they're going in for their big tournaments, their D1 schools, they're getting up in the ranks of competition, it's going to be
Hmm.
smaller pool, but more intense, more better athletes, and same in college. But then again, stress load, having a job, the workload of school, social things like that, they always pile up on the person.
Right, right. And so, would you like set a specific meal plan for that to be able to recoup them during their downtime? Because I know there's some foods and things that you can eat that actually works better while you're sleeping.
Yes.
So would you implement those into the high school, college, because the workload's getting more, and the better the I guess the most opportune time that they're going to have to recuperate is while they're sleeping. So you would adjust their meals accordingly.
Yes.
Okay. Now, for an elderly person, I won't say elderly because we don't know what elderly is anymore. Because the older we get now, I've seen guys 60 years old still punching the bag. It's just like it's just in them. We lose a lot of muscle mass. We lose a lot of bone density. What would you recommend for someone that's 50 plus to eat or to ingest to be able to maintain, the muscle mass and the bone density to keep the bones from getting brittle?
Well, the older we get, there's a little misconception. At any age, you need all the same types of nutrients, just
Okay.
different amounts older. And when it comes to older athletes, I'd say to maintain, like
Okay.
help kind of fight off Father Time.
Right. Right. So to help them stay young, like I said, besides working out and hitting the gym, you know as you get older, you have to find other little bitty ways to try to maintain. And dieting is a big part of that. It's a big part of it all along, but especially when you get older, it's a big part.
Yes.
So, is there anything else you want to share with us? I once again I want to say thank you for being a part of this, and hopefully I will be able to call on you again as we go forward in the RWB Sports program, and letting the fans know what all goes into putting a boxing event or even a jiu-jitsu event. When you get to that point to where you're in competition, there's a lot that goes into putting that together, all the way down to, what a fighter eats, what a fighter ingests in order to maintain and stabilize. So, is there anything else you would like to share with us while we have, a couple of minutes left?
Um, I want to thank you for the opportunity. I'm very grateful.
Hmm.
It's a very big thing for me. And that for people just coming up, just try to have more fun at first. Don't get so serious so quickly.
Okay. Okay. Coming up in the field of nutrition.
Well, that and also athletics, unless you're going for your golden globes, your golden
Okay.
gloves, and other stuff like that. Like, pace yourself to your goal. You know what I mean? Be honest with yourself.
Okay. All right. That's very, very good information to tell to tell these young fighters, because we always have fighters. We got several fights coming up here over the next month or so. We have like 15 different venues that's happening within these last 3 months, right before the new year. So, like I said, a lot of things go into putting this stuff together, and I want to thank you for being a part of explaining and acknowledging what it takes to put something like this together for the people that don't know. For the fans that love the sport of boxing, but they don't know what all entails. For the fighter who thinks they may want to fight, but don't realize what all it entails. Discipline. You have to have discipline, and that's one of the things that even going into nutrition or going into your dieting, you have to be disciplined in order to stick with it. You have to be disciplined in order to maintain, what you have. And I want to thank you for joining. We'll take these last 28 seconds and tell people how they can get in touch with you in case they need some information, in case they need help with the diet plan. Go ahead and take the floor, and then I'll close it out.
Thank you so much. I'm on Instagram as Dean Blankinship and Dalton Blankinship on Facebook. And I also have a YouTube channel called Tesseractive Tales where I'm trying to start putting nutrition content on there as well.
Okay.
Any of those.
Well, excellent. Because I will feed you this this feed so you can add this to your YouTube channel. Once again, I want to thank you all. I hope everybody is going to find a lot of information within this video that you will be able to take back to your respective gyms, or that you will be able to take back to your respective places of training, and be able to adjust and be able to maintain your diet as you go forward and get ready for these big events coming up that you have. I just want to thank you once again, Dalton Blankinship, for coming on here and working out the nutritional side of it. This is Reginald Peoples with RWB Sports, and we will see you in the turn.